not letting the moment pass. And I'm talking about that moment of inspiration, that moment of positivity, that moment of belief, that moment of passion and you could apply it to any and every area of your life, right? Because I think we all have this inner dialogue that's going on constantly in ourselves. And most of the time, if not all of the time, we're not even aware of this inner dialogue that's going on with ourselves. And broken down to its most, I think, fundamental form, that inner dialogue is between our soul, our spirit, our intuition, our inspiration, whatever terminology works best for you, versus our ego, right? Or our fears, our rational minds, our justifications, our excuses, our practical aspects. If you start paying attention to that inner dialogue, you'll notice when the ego and the fears and the rational mind is taken over and is sort of dominating the conversation, and you feel a sense of angst, of self-doubt, of stress, overwhelm, all those feelings that don't feel good, that don't feel right, okay? And when the other partner in the dialogue is sort of dominating or trying to get a word in that dialogue, in that inner dialogue that's going on, you feel a sense of peace. You feel a sense of alignment. You feel a sense of, in your soul, in your gut, in your heart, of this is right. This is my truth. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I believe in this. Yes, I'm going to do this. And that is the moment, that moment of inspiration, that moment of passion, that moment of truth, of your soul dominating that inner dialogue that's always going on within you. That is the moment that I'm asking you and encouraging you to pay attention to and not let that moment pass. Because what most of us do, again, is first of all, we're not even aware of that inner dialogue going on. Second of all, we do let that moment of inspiration pass, that moment of motivation and unstoppable. You feel like you are unstoppable and you can do anything and you can conquer your dreams and you can achieve all your goals. It's a fleeting moment and it's just as real as the other participant in that dialogue. It's just as real. It's just as valid. In fact, I would argue that it's more real and more valid than the ego-driven dialogue that's dominating, that is driven by your fears and your rational, practical minds and your self-doubt. Because of that feeling that you get when either one is dominating, right? That feeling in that moment of there's this peace that comes over you within. And there's this sense of, this feels right. Yes, this is who I'm meant to be. This is the right path. It's that moment of decision making where you're constantly trying to figure out what's the next best step. And again, it's letting that moment of inspiration, that part of the inner dialogue dominate and not letting the ego and the fear-driven self-limiting beliefs dominate, okay? And what most of us do, besides not even being aware of that inner dialogue, is let's say we start to pay attention to that. The next step that we usually do, because it's easier, is to let that moment pass, not act on it in that moment. And what happens then? That moment dies, and that feeling of truth and alignment and inspiration and passion dies with it. And then you're leaving room for that other part, that other participant in that dialogue to dominate and to take over. And you start to rationalize and justify, and it's not the right time now, or I can't do this, or, this is a pipe dream and I'll never get this done. That dominates, and the more you feed that, the more that becomes the truth and the reality. But if you flip that over and you do start to pay attention to that other participant in that dialogue, and you don't let that moment pass, that moment of inspiration, that moment of truth and alignment with your soul and your heart and everything that you know within you that may not, be able to, on paper, counter argue all the arguments that you have for that other part of you, but you know it to be true. It goes beyond what you can analyze and rationalize and put down on paper and justify. It's this deep, deep knowledge and knowing within yourself that this is true, this is right, and this is the path you should take. If you don't let that moment pass and you act on it in the smallest way possible, even in that moment, whatever it is, if you have a positive, compassionate, loving thought about yourself or about someone else, write it down, pick up the phone, tell them. Don't let that moment pass and think it and say, oh, yes, I feel this and this is true. And then the moment passes and you don't act on it. And what happens when the next time you're interacting with that same person or those thoughts about yourself, the other participant in that dialogue will dominate. And that moment will have passed. And those flames, that's the flames of your passion, they will have died out. So in whatever small way, don't let that moment of inspiration, that moment of passion, that moment of truth within you that you feel on the deepest knowing level in your heart, in your soul, in your gut, don't let that moment pass. Act on it. In the smallest way possible. Whatever you could do, write it down, say the words, pick up the phone, write that email, reach out to that person, whatever it is, in whatever context. Don't let those moments of truth, of alignment, of passion, of inspiration pass, because when you act on it, even in the smallest way, you are feeding that flame of passion. And in order to seize your passion and get to that end result and truly realize all of your dreams, it is by feeding each moment of inspiration in that way and not letting it pass. Those compounded over time, we all know this, that creates the habit of the consistency. Each time you have that moment and you don't let it pass and you do something in that moment, whatever small thing, you'll do it again the next time and again the next time. And those are the small steps that lead to the larger realization and manifestation of all your dreams and all your goals. That's how it works. And the opposite is true too. The more you do let those moments pass, the more you feed into the ego side of things and the fear-based things, and you let that part of you dominate that dialogue, the more times you consistently put out those flames or don't fuel those flames, they will stop presenting themselves to you, or you will notice them even less. And that dialogue will no longer be a dialogue. It will be, a one-way street conversation, a one-way street, diatribe of your ego talking at you. And the back and forth, that inner dialogue that we all need. I mean, there's something to learn from and to take from both sides of that dialogue, right? I'm not saying completely ignore the rational mind and the ego, because there's a reason we have that inner dialogue going. I'm saying don't let the moment pass of the moment of inspiration, the moment of passion, the moment of truth. Act on it in that moment, immediately, in whatever small way you can. And that will build the habits and the consistency compounded over time that will truly let you realize your dreams and become your best self and achieve all your goals and attain that meaning and fulfillment in life that we're all searching for. Not by ignoring it and not feeding that flames. In order to seize your passion, you have to feed your passion. And those little moments, those fleeting moments, A, you have to pay attention to them. You have to be aware of that inner dialogue, and B, feed those moments, act on them immediately, again, in the smallest way possible. That is such a huge key and trick and tool of how to leverage your own inner resources and how to understand yourself, right? Self-awareness. I always say it starts with self-awareness. Understanding how you operate and understanding that inner dialogue within you and leveraging it to create the best results possible for you, right? So anytime you feel, and it's a feeling that is indescribable, right? I learned a new word the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and there's this word that's, it's called, I think I'm getting it right, ineffable, right? It's something that is impossible to describe in words. That's that feeling of when that moment of inspiration and true passion and true alignment and peace within you, where this is right, this is your truth. Those moments are the ones, and you have to pay attention to them. They're very subtle. And when you pay attention to them and you see them come up in you, act on them immediately. Do whatever small act you can in that moment to start feeding those flames. And that will compound over time, again, to build the habits you need, to build the consistency you need, to build the self-empowerment and confidence you need, and to shut up for the moment the other participant in that dialogue. And I'm not saying to completely ignore that other participant, because you need that side of you. You need the rationalizations, you need the practical sides. But in that moment of inspiration is not when you act on those. You act on that feeling that is ineffable, that feeling of truth and inspiration and purpose and passion and alignment with everything. Everything is in alignment. And to just drive the point home a little bit more, the opposite feeling that you get when you are listening to that other participant in the dialogue, that's fear-driven and ego-based, right? Think about it. What feelings come over you versus the feelings of that ineffable, indescribable feeling of peace and truth and alignment, and this is right. It's your chest closes up, it's stress, it's anxiety. I mean, I know that certain times when I'm in that place and I'm listening to that voice in my head, I feel like my soul is literally being ripped apart, and I'm two entities, and nothing is in alignment, and it's torturous. It's the worst feeling in the world. So that in of itself should be proof that in those moments, you don't react and act immediately when you feel that voice dominating, but you do need to act and respond and act on those moments of passion and truth and inspiration. Don't let those moments pass. Feed those moments, feed those flames of passion. That is how, again, over time, when you become aware of that, when you start paying attention to that, when you start doing that consistently, whatever small thing you can do, and I'm talking about specific actions, not just thoughts, right? It's not enough. You have to actually do something with that moment of inspiration. Don't let it pass. It could be as small as it is. That over time, that's how you realize your dreams and you become your best self. And another important piece of this is don't beat yourself up if you didn't do it, right? Because I promise you, when you start paying attention to those moments of inspiration, those moments of truth, those moments of passion, and that part of your inner dialogue, they'll come up more and more and more, and they'll get louder and louder and louder. So don't beat yourself up if you didn't act on the first one or didn't act on one that you wanted to. Wait for the next moment. But if you do consistently ignore those moments and sort of put out those flames, then you will stop hearing that voice altogether. And that is a surefire way not to realize your dreams and not to become your best self. So that was my inspiration for this week, my thoughts this week about how to go out there and do more of what you love, be more of who you love in order to realize all of your dreams and become your best self. And what is better than that, right? I always say that. That is what life is about. That is my belief. We are here to become our best selves. We are here to manifest our personal legends, the person that we were put on this earth to become. We are here to contribute as much value to ourselves and to the world in turn, right? By becoming that best self, by realizing all of our best dreams and biggest dreams. And not letting that moment pass is a key way to start small and start acting on it and start doing that over time consistently. Those are my thoughts this week.